Yes, it is absolutely true that a tiny speck of yolk or other fat can make it impossible to whip egg whites into a stable, voluminous foam. Some people say this is an old myth. Well, I'm here to prove that it's not a myth, it is a stone-cold kitchen fact. Says science, says empirical observation. That's redundant. All observation is empirical, and the other way around. Right. Just watch. Perfectly separated egg white goes into a bowl. Now I'm going to plop in a couple drops of oil. This is comparable to the amount of fat that you might find in, say, a mixing bowl that you didn't wash all the way before trying to beat egg whites in it. Like, a bowl where you just whipped some cream or something, and then you turned around to try to whip some egg whites in it without washing it first. A little fat in the bowl. Now, hold on a second. I just said a tiny speck of fat will render these egg whites unwhippable. These seem to be whipping up just fine. I mean, look, we haven't even been beating for a minute and a half yet, and there's almost stiff peaks in there. It is a myth. It is a myth. No, it's not a myth. It's not a myth. There are videos on the internet where people will take an egg white and they'll put like a spoonful of oil in it and they'll whip it up to stiff-ish peaks and they'll say, look, it's totally a lie. You can totally beat egg whites with fat in the bowl. What those people don't show you is what happens literally a minute later. Here we are 2 seconds later and that peak already isn't looking super stiff anymore. A few seconds later, and a few seconds after that, and a few seconds after that, and look, the foam has almost completely collapsed. It's only been a minute since we got our firm peak, and now it's gone. Yes, egg whites contaminated with a little fat can whip up, but they don't whip up very stiff, and they are incredibly unstable. They collapse almost instantaneously. It's a little bit more stable if you whip it up with a tiny little speck of yolk rather than straight fat in it, but the foam is still gonna suck. To understand why fat has this effect in egg whites, we need to remind ourselves how this normally works. A nice clean egg white, no contaminants. What's happening in there as we beat it? Well, consider that egg white is about 90% water and 10% protein. That's what these are, proteins. We apply a little shearing force, we mix everything up, and we start to incorporate air. Plus, all this violence busts the proteins apart. They unravel into strands. And as we keep mixing, we cause those protein strands to bump into each other, and they bond with each other. They gradually form a web that tangles up and holds all the water and air in a somewhat stable matrix. That's our foam. And it's all made possible by these bonds between proteins. These are what hold the matrix together. Here we are whipping our nice clean egg white, no fat, and in less than 2 minutes we have stiff peaks. Stiffer than what we just got with the oil, and that foam is far more stable. After maybe a half hour you'll notice it leaking some water, but that's why you don't wait around a long time to bake your souffle or whatever you're making with an egg white foam. If the foam only lasted literally a minute, you would never have time to mix up all the other souffle ingredients or whatever and get the thing in the oven before it collapsed. And that's the kind of extreme instability we're talking about with a greasy egg foam. A greasy foam will never get you a meringue as cushy and durable as my sofa from Allform, the sponsor of this video. My kids have been abusing this Allform couch for a year now, and it's holding up great. Not a scratch on it, and still cushy enough that I can drop an egg onto it and it will not crack. You'd never guess that such high-quality furniture came to my house in the mail, in boxes. All American made, super easy to assemble, no tools needed. The advantage of this modular design is you can order basically any sofa configuration imaginable. How many seats you want? You want corners? You want a chase? You want fabric or leather? Which color? Which color feet? We got whiskey leather and walnut feet for our 3-seater with chase. And if we reconfigure the room someday, we can reconfigure the sofa, add a seat, who knows? Order your sofa today. Shipping is fast and free. If you decide you don't like it, they'll come and take it back within 100 days. Use my link in the description and get 20% off the sofa of your choice. Allform.com/Adam Ragusea for 20% off. Thank you, Allform. Anyway, why exactly does fat have this deleterious effect on egg foams? Well, check this 2009 dissertation from Iowa State by Dr. Guang Wang. He's now a big-time R&D director in the food industry, and back when he was finishing his PhD, he did a bunch of experiments with egg foams. He found that an egg white and fat mixture with as little as 0.05% fat caused significant reduction in foam expansion. Now, other researchers going back decades have come up with somewhat different numbers than that, but they're all small. All the scientists are agreed a very small amount of fat will mess up your foam. Dr. Wang writes, the problem essentially arises from protein-lipid interactions at the air-liquid interface. So here's our water, and here's our air. That's the interface between the two. In order for the proteins to bond together and form a web, they need to smash into each other. And it's surprisingly hard to get these two crazy kids together when they are diluted in this deluge of water. There's only 1 part of them to every 9 parts of water. So where the proteins do tend to hook up is at the air-liquid interface. The proteins are somewhat hydrophobic, so they don't love to mix with water, and they tend to collect at the surface of the foam, or at the surface of bubbles, and there they can link up with each other and form that matrix that we need. But if you throw fat in there, the fat is far more hydrophobic than the protein, so it pushes away from the water and goes right into that air-liquid interface, and there it blocks the proteins from coming together. Now, what I just gave you was an obscene oversimplification of the mechanism that Dr. Wang and other scientists describe, and there are other mechanisms at play, but that's basically one of them. Things get more complicated when you do the experiment again with egg yolk rather than oil, because egg yolk isn't just fat. It isn't just triglycerides. It also has other kinds of lipids, like cholesterol and phospholipids. Phospholipids have a lipophilic tail made of fatty acids and a hydrophilic head, the phosphate group. Phospholipids are the emulsifiers in egg yolk that make so many things possible here in the kitchen. One end will bond with fat, the other end will bond with water, and they will hold an oil and water emulsion together. The really groundbreaking part of Dr. Wang's doctoral research was that he fractionated the lipids in the egg yolk, broke them apart to see what effect each kind of lipid in there has all on its own when whipped with egg white. TAG there means triglycerides, that's the pure fat part of the egg yolk. PL is phospholipid, that's the pure emulsifier part of the egg yolk. And Wang's experiments showed that phospholipids are also bad for egg white foams, but they're not as bad as triglycerides. This may explain why a little speck of yolk is bad, but it's not quite as bad as a comparable speck of oil. These eggs have a little speck of yolk in them, and yeah, the best I can get is a soft little peak. Meager as it may be, this foam is actually far more stable than the one we made with oil. This does not immediately deflate. Phospholipids might actually play a stabilizing role in egg foam. Wang throws out a couple of possible explanations for that. Stable as it may be, this foam still sucks. It's not nearly as fluffy and stiff as an uncontaminated egg white foam. Now sure, there are people on the internet who will tell you that they had 5 egg whites in a bowl, they went to go crack in the 6th one, and they got a little bit of yolk in there, and they got really worried, but they whipped it up into a foam just fine, and they baked their sponge cake. The cake came out great. I do not doubt this. But the fact remains that yolk contamination of as little as a fraction of a percent will measurably diminish the size and strength of your foam, says science. This is a thing people study because yolk contamination is a serious problem in the food industry. Contamination with yolk is such a serious problem that these scientists in 2011 tried to treat contaminated egg whites with lipase enzymes derived from pig pancreas. And that's also why you and I have a pancreas. Is this where the pancreas is? I have no idea. But the pancreas makes lipase enzymes that break our dietary fats down into smaller bits that our cells can actually use. So yeah, they dropped some pig lipase into the eggs to break down the lipids in the yolk and keep them from interfering with the protein matrix. It worked okay, not great. The more effective method is apparently to separate out the fats by centrifuge, but I can imagine that's expensive. Hey, what would happen if you didn't bother separating out the yolk at all? Let's try whipping a whole egg, a white plus a whole yolk in it. After 2 minutes, that's frothy, but not stiff at all. You can see why people doing this by hand in the old days would have just given up by now, but we live in the age of power tools, so let's see if we can't make a foam out of this egg yet. After 10 minutes of full power beating, that's starting to look like loose mayonnaise. Check it. Those are soft peaks. I kept going for another 5 minutes for a total of 15, and I never got any better. Very soft peaks, but peaks nonetheless. And this is very stable because egg yolk contains phospholipids, not just triglycerides. It's a rather appealing substance, this heavily whipped whole egg. I wonder if we could do anything with it. Let's try frying it in a nonstick pan with plenty of butter. Maybe this will get us the fluffiest scrambled eggs ever. It's funny, this is a really hot pan, but those eggs are barely sizzling. The eggs are full of air, and air is actually a pretty bad conductor of heat compared to water or fat. So heat from the pan is having trouble reaching the inside of this mass through all of that insulating air. Took me a while to get this cooked, and boy, what appetizing eggs. Maybe they taste better than they look? Nope, real dry and spongy. What if we tried something else? Let's try mixing some sugar into a whipped whole egg. Sugar generally helps egg foams up to a point, and in here I've got some hot milk, flour, more sugar, and vanilla. Let's fold this in, and then theoretically we should have souffle batter. This is exactly what normally is in souffle batter. We've just combined the ingredients in a novel way. Throw that in the oven. For comparison, let's do this the normal way. Separate out the yolk, whip the white by itself with a little sugar. Sugar really helps with the peaks. And then here I've got hot milk, flour, sugar, and the yolk. Normally you'd want to heat that base until it thickens a bit before folding it in, but I'm trying to keep this experiment as similar to the previous one as possible. The only difference is where the egg yolk was when we whipped our foam. Into a ramekin, throw that in the oven. And souffle number 1 is done! Yum! I guess that's why we separate our eggs before we beat them for souffle. In contrast, here's our quick and dirty conventional souffle made with separated egg. Not the best one I've ever made, but at least it's actually a souffle. So I hope I've made my point. A little bit of egg yolk absolutely will mess up your foam, and a little bit of oil will be even worse for it. But while we're doing egg experiments, there's 2 other things I want to check. What if we dropped a little oil in the egg whites, but we gave it another stabilizing ingredient to compensate, like sugar? That's a more real-world situation anyway. People always make meringue with sugar. Hey, that's actually a little better. I mean, it's still a relatively meager foam, but that's better. Let's wait a couple of minutes and see how stable it is, and nah, it's disintegrating. Not as bad, but still a no-go. Okay, last thing I want to check. What happens if you whip pure yolk? There's one yolk in the bowl, and I've got another one that I can use to bulk this out. Not much happens in the first couple of minutes. Again, back in the days before electric mixers, people probably would have given up by now, but let's push ahead with the power of modern technology. After 5 minutes, it's no meringue, but it kind of looks like hollandaise sauce. I'll keep going, and a few minutes later, well, it's clear that this has taken all the air it's ever going to take. Again, not meringue, but that's an appealing-looking substance. I wonder what would happen if we cooked it, real gently over a double boiler, like you do with hollandaise sauce. Will this become a smooth cooked custard? Nope. Too much protein, not enough sugar or fat to get in between the proteins when they cook. That's curdled, that's gross. I guess what we learned today is people cook eggs the way they do traditionally for a reason.